The hotel built where the earth never sleeps. The ground here is never still. It hums, it shifts, it breathes beneath every step. And in this restless place, where the earth refuses silence, someone decided to build a hotel anyway. At first, the idea sounded reckless. A structure rising above a landscape shaped by constant motion, where the land itself rewrites its own rules. Yet this hotel became one of the most studied experiments in modern architecture, not because it conquered the earth beneath it, but because it learned how to listen. To understand why this place matters today, we need to go back to the moment the site was first chosen. The region sat atop a living geological fault, a zone where tectonic plates whispered to each other day and night. Small tremors were normal here. So were sudden shifts, subtle vibrations, and the quiet knowledge that the ground could change at any moment. Developers saw danger, scientists saw fascination, and the visionaries behind the project saw a challenge that could redefine how buildings interact with unstable land. They didn't want to freeze the earth into submission. They wanted to coexist with its motion. Early surveys revealed a truth that shaped everything that followed. Traditional foundations would fail here. Rigid supports cracked under repeated micro-movements. Concrete fractured, steel fatigued. The earth rejected stillness. Any structure that tried to dominate it would eventually be torn apart. The first breakthrough came when engineers stopped thinking in terms of resistance and began thinking in terms of response. Instead of anchoring the hotel deep into ground, they explored systems that could absorb motion, redirect energy, and move with the land rather than against it. The hotel wouldn't stand still. It would adapt, but adaptation came with cost. Designs grew complex, budgets stretched, and doubts multiplied. Every innovation introduced new risks, new unknowns, new questions no one could fully answer. Could guests feel safe knowing the building beneath them was designed to move? Could comfort exist on land that never truly rests? As plans evolved, the structure began to resemble something alive, layers that shifted independently, supports that flexed under pressure, a building designed not as a monument, but as a living interface between human comfort and geological reality. Yet beneath the optimism, tension gathered. The land's movements grew more pronounced during seasonal shifts. Instruments recorded patterns no one had predicted. The earth was speaking in ways the models hadn't prepared them for. And as construction approached its most critical phase, the team began to realize that building where the earth never sleeps would demand more than innovation. It would demand trust. Trust, however, is fragile when the ground itself refuses certainty. As construction began, the earth responded immediately. Micro-tremors rippled through the site with unnerving regularity, subtle enough to ignore, strong enough to feel. Instruments flickered constantly, recording shifts that never fully stopped. The land was not hostile, but it was alert. The first structures revealed how unforgiving this environment could be. Support frames designed flex instead twisted unevenly. Shock absorption systems worked in isolation, but conflicted when layered together. Each solution solved one problem while creating another. The building behaved less like a unified structure and more like a collection of competing instincts. Engineers argued late into the night. Some pushed for greater rigidity, believing too much movement would destabilize the whole. Others insisted rigidity was the very mistake that would doom the project. Every tremor became evidence for both sides. Every recalculation widened the divide. Then came the first major setback. During a routine stress test, a section of the lower framework absorbed a series of microquakes in rapid succession. The system responded as designed, but the energy redirected upward, amplifying motion in the guest-level floors. The movement was slight, almost imperceptible, yet deeply unsettling. If guests felt it, even faintly, the hotel's promise of comfort would collapse. Fear crept in. Investors questioned the vision. Safety officials demanded guarantees no one could honestly provide. The land was moving too frequently, too unpredictably. Some suggested abandoning the site altogether, but the turning insight emerged from an unexpected source. A geophysicist studying the seismic data noticed a rhythm hidden beneath the chaos. The tremors were not random. They followed cycles tied to subterranean pressure release, patterns the earth repeated over and over. The ground wasn't unstable. It was communicating. This discovery shifted everything. If the building could synchronize with those cycles instead of reacting to them blindly, the motion could be anticipated, softened, even neutralized. The hotel didn't need stronger resistance. It needed timing. Designs were stripped back and reimagined. Systems were linked instead of isolated. Movement in one section would now trigger compensating responses elsewhere, distributing motion like a controlled wave instead of shock. But embracing this idea meant discarding months of work. Components already installed had to be removed. Schedules collapsed, costs soared, and morale thinned as the realization settled in. They were not building on the Earth. They were building with it. As construction resumed under this new philosophy, the building began to behave differently. Not quieter, not still, but coherent. The tremors passed through like breath instead of impact. Still, one question remained unanswered. What would happen when the Earth stopped whispering and finally spoke in force? The question lingered like a fault line beneath every conversation. Micro-tremors were one thing. A real seismic event was another. And in a place where the Earth never sleeps, that moment was not a possibility. It was an inevitability. As the hotel rose higher, the margin for error narrowed. Each added floor increased the complexity of the motion response system. Sensors multiplied. Algorithms adjusted in real time. The building had become a living network, constantly listening to the land beneath it. Yet no simulation could fully predict what would happen when the Earth released its stored pressure all at once. Tension deepened across the site. Workers felt the vibrations underfoot daily. Some grew accustomed to them. Others never did. Safety drills became routine, not out of fear but necessity. The land was calm until it wasn't. Then, without warning, the patterns shifted. Instruments detected a rapid change in subterranean pressure late one night. The familiar rhythm disappeared, replaced by erratic signals that spiked across every monitor. Geophysicists watched in silence as the data confirmed what they had long anticipated. A significant release was forming, not catastrophic, but powerful enough to test every assumption behind the project. The team had hours, not days. Emergency protocols activated instantly. Non-essential staff evacuated. Engineers moved to control center, eyes locked on cascading data streams. The building stood incomplete, exposed, vulnerable. And beneath it, the Earth gathered momentum. When the quake arrived, it was not explosive. It was rolling, deep, relentless. The ground moved in long waves that traveled beneath the structure like an ocean swell. Concrete groaned. Steel sang. The hotel responded exactly as it had been designed to, but never before at this scale. Lower supports flexed, absorbing the initial shock. Mid-level systems activated milliseconds later, redirecting energy outward. Upper levels swayed gently, just enough to cancel amplification. From the outside, the movement looked alarming. From the inside, it felt strangely calm, like standing on the deck of a ship riding a powerful but familiar tide. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, slowly, the motion faded. Silence followed, not the absence of movement, but the return of rhythm. The instruments steadied. The building settled. The Earth exhaled. Inspection teams moved carefully through every level. No fractures. No structural failures. No cascading damage. The hotel had endured its first true test, but the emotional impact was heavier than the physical one. Relief gave way to awe. The building hadn't resisted the quake. It had danced with it. Every calculation, every sacrifice, every abandoned design had led to this moment. Yet even in victory, a final truth emerged. Surviving the quake was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a responsibility. Because if humans could build structures that move with the Earth, then they had also accepted a deeper obligation to respect forces far older, far wiser than their own ambition. And as the dust settled, one final question remained. Could comfort, luxury, and trust truly exist in a place where the ground would always remember how to move? The answer revealed itself not in blueprints or data, but in human experience. In the weeks following the quake, the team made a bold choice. They invited a small group of guests to stay in the unfinished hotel, not for marketing, not for spectacle, but to listen, to learn how it felt to inhabit a building designed to move. Guests arrived with hesitation. They knew where they were. They knew the land's reputation. But as nights passed, something unexpected happened. The subtle motions that once frightened designers became almost imperceptible. The building's movements synchronized with the body's own rhythms. Breathing, balance, rest. What had once been unsettling faded into a quiet awareness, then into calm. Instead of fearing the earth, guests felt connected to it. The interiors had been shaped for this purpose. Materials chosen to soften sound, lighting designed to ground the senses. Rooms arranged so movement traveled gently through the structure rather than jolting across it. The hotel didn't deny the Earth's activity. It translated it. Over time, the hotel earned its reputation not as a marvel of engineering, but as a place of trust. Visitors described sleeping deeper than they had in years, waking with a sense of presence, as if the land itself had carried them through the night. The movement wasn't a threat. It was a reminder that stability does not require stillness. And that is why this hotel matters today. In a world obsessed with control, it stands as proof that coexistence is sometimes stronger than resistance, that listening can be more powerful than force, and that even in the most restless places on Earth, humans can find comfort, not by silencing the ground beneath them, but by learning how to move with it. The hotel built where the earth never sleeps did not conquer the land. It trusted it, and in doing so, it taught us a quieter, deeper definition of strength, one that shifts, adapts, and endures. Subscribe to join the journey. The hotel